What do you think won't exist in 2030? Probably everything that isn't a subscription service or MAU. You will own nothing and you will be happy. You will sleep in the pods. You will eat the bugs. You will own nothing and you will be happy. I hate how common these are. I'd much rather pay once. I'm looking at you, Adobe. Subscription, service my ass. Unicorns. They don't exist now, but they probably won't exist in 2030 either. Furiously studies genetic engineering. 9 years. You got this. You're not wrong. Water in the Colorado River. First federal water emergency was just declared for the river. First time, ever. Yep. But it surely isn't global warming. Water in California. That might not be the case. Apparently there's a good chance that California will flip-flop between periods of little rain, and periods of lots of rain. California in general is apparently difficult to predict in climate models because it stretches right across different climate types with the ocean right next door. And though the expectation is that the more temperate climate is going to see more rain and the drier climate would see less, that's only part of the story. I just found about this a couple of weeks ago because of a thread in r/Los Angeles that was asking why it was more humid than normal. This summer the humidity near the beach has regularly been in the mid 70% range when it is usually like half that. Also it rained yesterday in LA. That rarely happens in August. It made me wonder if the effects of climate change on Southern California means we're going to be bouncing between super hot dry drought periods and then hot humid more tropical phases, and that could be the case, but of course one study isn't gospel. So, according to the study, in some instances the increased warming leads to warm surface water right offshore that would create increased evaporation and more tropical-like weather onshore. That leads to more humid weather and wetter weather with the possibility for the big winter storms, that unfortunately for the snowpack would be rather warm and not drop a lot of snow. Which isn't great. Normally we don't get tropical storms here because there is an upwelling of cold water that happens near the shore and that weakens storms as they approach. If that was covered with warm water, then storms approaching the shore could be strengthened, and in the right conditions it could mean that it connects multiple atmospheric rivers with the coast of California. It has happened in the past, including a crazy year where there was so much rain that the Central Valley was almost entirely covered by water after weeks of continuous rain. Link to Wikipedia. The event dumped an equivalent of 10 feet of rainfall in California, in the form of rain and snow, over a period of 43 days. Some quotes from a climate research paper I found. Predicting future climate in California has turned out to be a tricky proposition, however. Most climate models tend to agree that the subtropics will experience a decline in precipitation and become drier. Middle to higher latitudes, on the other hand, should experience higher rainfall and become wetter in response to increasing greenhouse gases. California is located in the middle, or transition, of these zones, so which model outcome should be applied here? Not only that, California experiences relatively large year-to-year variations in rainfall, simply due to interactions between the ocean and atmosphere. In general, their findings have highlighted the importance of rising sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean, similar to those measured in El Niño events. In contrast to previous projections, they conclude that increases in greenhouse gases and warming sea surface temperatures may actually result in increased precipitation for California in the 21st century. Dr. Allen describes his projection as a possible shift of the tropical Pacific to a more El Niño-like background state. He is careful, however, to explain that El Niño is not necessarily a required response for the increase in California precipitation. The important conclusion is that tropical Pacific warming drives the atmospheric response and the California wettening, he says. In Dr. Allen's view, wetter futures for California were only predicted in models that simulate the link, or teleconnection, between El Niño and the Californian climate. Not all models are able to simulate the observed teleconnection between NENO 3.4 sea surface temperatures and California precipitation, Dr. Allen explains. We show that those models that can simulate this teleconnection yield larger and more consistent increases in California precipitation. Link to Scientia. And the study itself. Link to Nature. So I guess the only thing we can say is that sometimes it will likely be much hotter and much drier, and then other years it could be the complete opposite. Edit. S0CKS_NZ commented below to add this article that explains more. It's a really good read. Link to Wired. Almost all 1995-year-old people. When you are 100 you have 1 to 1000 chance to live to 110. Not sure how credible the source is now, but years ago I saw a documentary about long-lived humans, and one of the physicians observed that, as you age past your prime, your body generally gets worse and worse with each passing decade, but in ideal conditions, deterioration sort of levels out at around age 90. So if you're very healthy at age 90 plus, your physical constitution could possibly stay at that level for many years. Naturally, you're more susceptible to injury and disease, but those can be avoided. What'll inevitably get you is cancer. Queen Elizabeth will be the one exception. She'll rule Britannia forever with an iron fist. And a cyborg body. Landline telephones instantly came to mind, but they'll probably last in some form a bit longer than that. Technically pagers still exist, but the only place you'll probably ever see them are in political centers or hospitals. We still have them, but almost all of us on call just forward it to our cell phones. Wrong. My mother will still be paying for hers. I technically have one only because it's actually cheaper with my full bundle somehow. They had a promo, though I think one of the limited offers that never expire, for a bundle with cable, internet, and phone service, that was cheaper than the equivalent bundle for just cable and internet. So I technically also have a landline but couldn't tell you the number even if you gave me an hour to look it up. COVID-19, it would be replaced by a different number? Technically speaking, COVID is likely to become endemic because it's super contagious and not everybody who can get a shot is getting one. Not to mention it's also evolving and there's more variants. Albeit this might mean COVID could slowly become less harsh over time, since we could be better able to combat it. So, the flu. New variants every year, usually at least 2 each year, but also usually only killing especially vulnerable people, and even then, in small numbers outside of other major health complications. Amazon, as it is today. Spicy answer, but it's already too big, and Bezos has already stepped down from leadership. It's plagued with quality control issues that are outside its ability to navigate, full of fake reviews because it's easy to manipulate, and people are already catching on. I think Amazon will turn into more of a 3PL/logistics company for other businesses, since that is what they have always done right. But things like Shopify enabling an army of small businesses to use the same tools but deliver better products and service are a major threat. And every large corp in the world is trying to compete now, with the same or better level of service. Amazon was revolutionary in that it forced companies to compete on their level of delivery. But once everyone does, Amazon doesn't have their monopoly anymore. I was reading another story about them having a harder and harder time hiring, because the work sucks so much and turnover is so high that they will literally burn through an entire city's worth of candidates and then not have enough people to staff their fulfillment centers. Sounds very unsustainable to me. A friend of mine is on a team that spent over a year trying to hire an applied scientist. Imagine you have a PhD in a quantitative field and can pick between 2 companies. One has great work-life balance, pay, and doesn't have on-call requirements, and the other gives you 10 days PTO, pays less, and expects you to be on call. Which would you pick? Agreed, I barely use Amazon now. It's plagued with counterfeit products, and the prices are nowhere as competitive as they once were. I recently bought some hard drives and everywhere was about PS180, Amazon was PS230. Even books can be found elsewhere cheaper. I've had to return 3 out of 5 of my last purchases because they were counterfeit or faulty or not as described. They aren't reliable. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this one.